Hollywood icon Joan Crawford was known for her dramatic roles and equally dramatic personal life, so it's no surprise that her will contain some shocking details. While she left behind a considerable estate, the most infamous aspect of her will was who she didn't leave anything to. In a move that stunned the public, Crawford completely disinherited two of her adopted children, Christina and Christopher, with a cold and cutting statement. "It is my intention to make no provision for my son Christopher or my daughter Christina for reasons which are well known to them." This fueled speculation about the rocky relationship between Crawford and her children, which Christina later exposed in her controversial book Mommy Dearest. Meanwhile, the bulk of Crawford's fortune went to various charities, including the USO and the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which supported struggling actors. Another odd detail in her will was her insistence that her Shih Tzu, Princess Lotus Blossom, be cared for in a manner befitting a star's beloved companion. She set aside funds specifically for the dog's care, ensuring her pet would continue to live in luxury even after she was gone. In true Joan Crawford fashion, even her will was filled with drama, mystery, and a touch of extravagance. Screen siren Marlene Dietrich, known for her sultry voice and androgynous style, left behind a will as intriguing as her life. The most unusual detail was her insistence that her vast collection of love letters from some of the most powerful men and women of her time, including Ernest Hemingway, John F. Kennedy, and Mercedes de Acosta, never be published. She left strict instructions that many of these personal letters be either sealed for decades or destroyed entirely, sparking endless speculation about what secrets they held. Another strange provision in her will was her shoes. Dietrich, famous for her glamorous wardrobe, specifically stated that her extensive shoe collection should not be auctioned or given to museums. Instead, she wanted them given only to close friends, each pair accompanied by a handwritten note about the memories attached to them. Despite her icy public persona, Dietrich's will also showed a softer side. She left a portion of her estate to her former housekeeper, ensuring she was well taken care of for life. However, she left nothing for her estranged daughter, Maria Riva, with whom she had a turbulent relationship. Just like in her movies, Dietrich's final act was filled with mystery, elegance, and just a hint of scandal. Legendary dancer Fred Astaire, known for his effortless grace on the dance floor, left behind a will that was as carefully choreographed as his routines. While most expected him to leave his fortune to family and charities, the most unusual clause was his strict ban on posthumous holograms or digital recreations of himself. He explicitly forbid anyone from using his likeness in commercials, movies, or other media, fearing that technology would distort his legacy. Ironically, years later, a CGI version of Astaire was controversially used in a vacuum cleaner commercial, violating the spirit of his wishes. Another odd detail in his will involved his extensive collection of dancing shoes. Rather than donating them to a museum or selling them at auction, Astaire specified that several pairs be buried with him, while others should be gifted to specific dance schools, ensuring that future generations could step into his shoes, both literally and figuratively. In a more heartwarming move, Astaire left a special note and financial provision for his longtime dance partner Ginger Rogers, thanking her for their legendary collaborations. Though their relationship was sometimes tense, he clearly held great respect for her. Even in his final wishes, Astaire proved that elegance and control weren't just part of his performances. They defined his entire life. Silent film legend Gloria Swanson, best remembered for her role as the eccentric Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, left behind a will as dramatic as her on-screen persona. One of the strangest details was her insistence that none of her personal diaries, letters, or unpublished memoirs ever be released to the public. Swanson, who had affairs with some of the most powerful men of her time, including Joseph P. Kennedy, likely wanted to keep certain secrets buried. Even more bizarre was her obsession with health and nutrition, which made its way into her will. A lifelong advocate of organic eating and raw foods, Swanson allocated funds to support health and wellness research, particularly in areas related to alternative medicine, something highly unusual for a Hollywood star of her era. She also requested that no processed or artificial foods be served at any gathering held in her honor after her passing. On a more sentimental note, Swanson left detailed instructions for the preservation of her extensive wardrobe, particularly the lavish costumes she wore in her films. She wanted them to be displayed only in exhibits that honored silent cinema, fearing that future generations might overlook the artistry of the early film era. In true Norma Desmond fashion, Swanson ensured that even in death. Golden Age actress Carole Lombard, known for her quick wit and glamorous style, tragically died in a plane crash in 1942, leaving behind a will with some unexpected details. One of the strangest provisions was her deeply personal letter to her husband, Clark Gable, which was to be delivered to him only after her death. The contents of the letter remain a mystery, but some speculate it contained her final wishes, expressions of love, or even a secret she never had the chance to reveal. Another unusual clause in Lombard's will involved her beloved collection of practical joke props. Famous for her mischievous sense of humor, she had an assortment of gag gifts, including whoopee cushions, trick cigarettes, and fake spiders. She requested that these be distributed among her closest friends in Hollywood, ensuring they would remember her with laughter rather than sorrow. Lombard, a proud patriot who was actively involved in war bond efforts, also left behind a generous sum to help support the families of World War II soldiers. Her will reflected both her playful personality and her deep sense of duty. Even in death, Carole Lombard ensured she would leave behind not just a legacy of great films, but also of love, laughter, and patriotism. Hollywood's original America's sweetheart, Mary Pickford, was a silent film icon who carefully crafted her image both on and off the screen. However, her will revealed some unexpected details that contrasted with her wholesome reputation. One of the strangest clauses was her strict control over her personal archives, including letters, diaries, and home movies. Pickford, known for her privacy, ordered that many of her personal writings remain sealed for decades, leading to speculation about what secrets she wanted to keep hidden from the public. Another odd request in her will was related to her beloved dolls. Pickford had a vast collection of antique dolls, some dating back to her childhood, and she left specific instructions on which dolls should be donated to museums and which should be buried with her. This eerie provision fascinated fans, as it suggested a deeply sentimental, almost superstitious attachment to these objects. Despite her wealth, Pickford was deeply charitable. She left a significant portion of her estate to help struggling actors through the Motion Picture and Television Fund, ensuring that future generations wouldn't suffer the financial hardships that many early Hollywood stars faced. Even in death, Pickford remained a mix of mystery, sentimentality, and generosity, just like the characters she once played. Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, Jean Harlow, passed away tragically at just 26 years old, but her will contain some surprising details. One of the strangest provisions was her obsession with her beauty routine, even in death. Harlow reportedly left instructions that she should be buried with her favorite makeup, including her signature red lipstick and platinum hair products, ensuring she remained glamorous in the afterlife. Another bizarre detail was her favorite lucky charm, a small ivory elephant figurine. Harlow had carried this trinket with her for years, believing it brought her good fortune. She requested that it be placed in her coffin, never to be separated from her, as if she believed it might continue protecting her even after death. Perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of her will was the financial arrangement, or lack thereof. Despite her immense fame, Harlow had little control over her finances due to MGM's strict contracts and her controlling mother. Most of her fortune was handled by others, leaving very little to distribute upon her passing. However, she did ensure that her beloved pet Pekingese dog was well cared for, setting aside money for its lifelong comfort. Even in death, Jean Harlow's will reflected the same mix of glamour, superstition, and tragedy that defined her short but unforgettable life. Legendary comedian W.C. Fields, known for his love of alcohol, dry wit, and disdain for authority, left behind a will that was as eccentric as the man himself. One of the strangest clauses in his will was a sizable sum of money left to a home for orphan children, but with a bizarre catch. Fields, who had a long-standing reputation for joking about his dislike of children, specified that the donation should only go to an orphanage where alcohol was legally permitted on the premises. Whether this was one last joke or a genuine request remains a mystery. Another unusual provision involved his massive collection of liquor. Fields had spent years stocking up on fine whiskey, gin, and wine, and he specifically requested that these bottles not be sold or given away, but instead slowly consumed by his closest friends in his memory. He even left a handwritten note encouraging them to toast to my health, even though I won't be needing it. Despite his cynical and comedic persona, Fields made sure to provide for his longtime companion, actress Carlotta Monti, ensuring she was financially secure after his passing. His will, much like his career, was a mix of sarcasm, rebellion, and a surprising amount of hidden warmth. Silent film heartthrob Rudolph Valentino, known as Hollywood's first great Latin lover, left behind a will that was just as mysterious and dramatic as his life. One of the strangest details was his obsession with the afterlife. Valentino had long been fascinated by the occult, and his will contained specific instructions for a secretive posthumous ritual. Some believe this was tied to his friendships with psychics and spiritualists, who claimed he wanted to communicate from beyond the grave. Another eerie provision was related to the infamous cursed ring he owned. Valentino believed that the ring brought misfortune, as nearly everyone who wore it suffered tragedy. Despite this, he refused to have it destroyed and instead left it in his estate, where it would later be linked to a series of strange deaths. Perhaps the most heartbreaking part of his will was that he never updated it to include his last love, Pola Negri, the actress who claimed to be his fiancée at the time of his sudden death. Instead, his fortune was mostly divided among close friends and business partners, leaving Negri publicly devastated. Even in death, Valentino's life remained filled with mystery, superstition, and cinematic-level drama. The elusive Greta Garbo, famous for her mysterious persona and the iconic phrase, "I want to be alone," ensured that her final wishes reflected her intensely private nature. One of the strangest clauses in her will was her absolute refusal to have a public funeral or memorial service. She despised Hollywood's spectacle and wanted to slip away just as quietly as she had retreated from the public eye decades earlier. Another bizarre provision involved her extensive art collection, which included works by Renoir and Monet. Rather than leaving specific instructions for its public display, Garbo's will allowed for pieces to be sold off, but only at the right time. A vague, almost cryptic condition that led to speculation about whether she had foreseen future market trends, or simply didn't want her prized possessions scattered too soon. Perhaps the most unexpected detail was her secret Swiss bank account, rumored to contain a fortune that she never touched. Garbo was notoriously frugal despite her wealth, and even in death, she maintained an air of secrecy about her finances. Ultimately, her will reflected exactly who she was, a woman of mystery, control, and an unwavering desire to remain an enigma, even in the afterlife. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to be notified of our new videos each day. Thanks for watching.